Good afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time of day it is. I've actually had a few whispers from other fellow demon hunters on a build I've been running, and it's actually quite different from what most people are running. It is the momentum build. Like I said, the momentum build hasn't really been viable since the first raid of Legion, and I'll be honest, this was actually one of my favorite builds. It's very fast paced. It's a very much a high risk, high reward type build. And I believe it's actually the case now. We'll see what comes when the first raid comes out in BFA. But as of right now, I'm loving it for dungeons and whatnot. It is by far probably the highest AOE spec Demon Hunters have right now. And to be honest, it's good and bad at the same time. The good side of it is, like I said, it does a crap load of AOE damage, and here are my talents for it. Um, it's pretty similar, but the main talent that you're looking at here is momentum. Um, the tooltip says, it says Fell Rush now lasts 6 seconds, and you do 50% more damage, and your Vengeful Retreat also acts like Prepared back in Legion, where you would get 80 Fury over 10 seconds. Now, that's using your mobility as offensive capabilities is kind of like a fun idea, but it also kind of leaves you defenseless, which is kind of one of the bad things. If you have to use your mobility for offensive capabilities when you need them to get away from something, you're going to be kind of SOL if you don't have any everything's on CD. But I'm going to show you pretty much what I mean on what this can do. Now, another key trick about running this build is the Azurite traits. Now, my gear is only 331, 333 equipped. I've ran a few mythics. I haven't gotten too lucky lately. Um, I mean, I haven't been really that lucky on gear, but I'll be honest, I've been very competitive on the DPS meters. If not, I've been topping them pretty damn hard, especially with trash. I've cleared out mythics usually faster with groups with high AOE. Even on single target, I'm very competitive with people that are higher item level than I am. I think when I was running this build back when I was like 310, I was out DPSing people on trash that are like 20 item levels above me. I think this is kind of broken, and I would not be surprised if this gets nerfed in the near before the raid. But at least in the meantime, I can show you what I mean on this build. The main Azurite traits that you want to go for, currently I have 2 of them. I would love to see what happens if I would stack 3 of them, is this talent right here. It's called Unbound Chaos. But pretty much what it does is that when you use your Fell Rush, a demon will come out and explode right where you ended your Fell Rush. Having 2 of those stacked and how often you use Fell Rush with the momentum build is insane. I can tell you right now that with a 331 item level, I am critting for over 16k on this thing. I'll give you a quick example. Here's my Fell Rush on 3 target dummies. Bam. Look at that, 16k over on 1 training test dummy. It is retarded damage. It does a lot of damage, and I strongly recommend this build if you're probably doing dungeons, heroics. If you have a gear tank who's pulling lots of trash mobs, this build is right up your alley. But again, with the momentum build, you have to be very aware on where you're using Fell Rush and your Vengeful Retreat. The problem is that you may aggro more mobs. You may piss off your group if you keep aggroing mobs left and right. My rule of thumb is to find out where your healer is and kind of use your healer as a go-between between your Fell Rushes and your Vengeful Retreat. Usually you won't aggro any mobs in the line of sight between your healer and your tank. So if you kind of use that as an example, if you want to have them maybe at a marker when you're first trying to get used to this build, put it above their heads, maybe it might help you out a little bit. But like I said, I strongly recommend this build. And the rotation is actually fairly easy. It's still a lot harder than I say the other builds, because there's actually more. You have to be very aware of your surroundings. But pretty much the order of you want to run everything, and as you can see my weak orders here, these are pretty much the 5 abilities on the left is what I want to be using on cooldown. Vengeful Retreat is probably what you want to be using first, but when I'm going into an AOE mob, I actually Fell Rush into it, so my Unbound Chaos can do the AOE, Vengeful Retreat out, and then do another Fell Rush in there. Now, another thing that I noticed too, that was different about Legion, is that your momentum actually stacks So as you can see here on my right side, that's my momentum bar that I use for weak auras. It was up to 10 seconds when I used both fell rushes, so you don't have to worry about waiting for the first momentum just to run out before you can activate your momentum stack again. So with that said, stuff you want to use on cooldown is fell rush, vengeful retreat, uh, probably blade dance first because I do have that talent where it causes the bleed effect, or the dot effect I should say, your eye beam, and then if you're low on fury, then your fell blade. That's pretty much the rotation. It's very simple. Um, I found out with this build, with the vengeful retreat giving you some extra uh, fury on top of everything, you usually don't run out of fury on this build. It's very rare that I'm just sitting there doing auto attacks. I'm always looking at my surroundings, and I find it very fun. And I'm very happy that this build is actually very reliable, and I think a big thanks is that it is to the Azurite traits. Now, I currently have 2 of them. The other Azurite trait I have is this 340 up here for my Blade Dance, and this is also a very powerful trait. But again, this is strictly just for the momentum build. There are other Demon Hunter builds out there that work. I see a lot of people running the demonic build with their, with I-beam, and that works just fine. I mean, there's no wrong way to play your Demon Hunter right now, but this is the build I prefer. It does a lot of AOE damage. Single target, it work fine. It may not be optimal for a single target. I think you might need other Azurite gear to optimize your single target damage with the momentum build, or maybe be running Nemesis in this case. It all depends what the stats are, but from what I can see, the momentum build is probably one of your higher DPS specs right now, especially with the Fell Rush Azurite trait with Unbound Chaos. It can literally do about over 30 to 40% of my damage per pull, depending on how big the mob is. It just does way too much damage. Before I close this video out, there are just 1 or 2 things I do want to point out about this ability. It's not, the demon is kind of glitchy. It's not 100% reliable. In this case, you can see it. I fell rush there, but the demon ended and exploded right here. I think if it gets caught up on something, it tends to end early. Sometimes I find it a little bit glitchy if I'm in the air. It doesn't always end in the right spot, but usually if you have a clear line of sight to your target, it'll usually go all the way through. So just keep that in mind. It does have a big hitbox radius as well. So, I mean, it should be hitting your targets, but just give yourself a little bit of room. Don't try and like fell rush all the way back here to hit your targets. You may not end up hitting them like that just happened there. So make sure you have enough distance between you and your targets to use this ability. So once you do, bam, look at that, 8k, 8k, then that was a 16k crit. I mean, you're gonna love this build. You're gonna have people. It's consistent damage too. It's consistent AOE damage. You will have this on every single pull. It's not like the Fell Barrage, whereas every 1 minute you can do insane AOE DPS. I prefer this build. It's very consistent AOE. You will clear trash left and right, and you'll do a shit ton of damage. That's all I can really just tell you at this point. Just keep having fun with this build. I mean, I recommend it. I don't see any other Demon Hunters play this, but hey, maybe it's maybe I'm just not coming across every Demon Hunter in the game, you know what I mean? So most of the Demon Hunters I come across too, just let me say, I've never seen anyone else use this build but me, and I figured I'd share it with you guys. So try this build out. Again, the key fact is the momentum, these traits here, and then use at least 2 of the Unbound Chaos if you can. Eventually I would like to try the 3rd one on the helm. It might work, I mean, but 2 is doing a lot of damage, but maybe, so I'll try stacking maybe 3, maybe see if that does stack 3 times. Maybe I'll do like 30k crits on my Fell Rush. No, probably not that much, but we'll see. Anyways, enjoy the build. Try it out. I recommend it. And I hope this video, and this is my Demon Hunter strand log, by the way, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Take care, and have a great day.